What if Blake Lively's $400 million lawsuit wasn't what it seemed? What if it was a cleverly planned distraction hiding something much more damaging beneath the surface? This isn't just another celebrity issue, this could seriously harm her reputation and career. Behind the scenes, there's talk of a hidden 17-point contract that's being presented as a harassment case, strange payments for public relations, and a judge who might have started noticing the irregularities. Hi, welcome to Alex and Trend. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you don't miss any updates. Let's break this down. Whenever Blake and Ryan Reynolds are trying to escape a PR disaster, they appear to overload the court with documents, accusing companies like Wayfair of not cooperating during legal processes. They submit thousands of attachments and then casually drop serious legal actions like subpoenas to content creators. Even when issues are unresolved, they tell the court everything is fine and ask for all pending matters to be dismissed quietly. Imagine if Wayfair had responded the same way, with just a short note in a letter. Blake's legal team would have reacted strongly, possibly even portraying her as a victim again. But in this case, Blake's team filed a document asking the court to drop subpoenas against certain creators and social media accounts like Popcorn Planet and Swifty Forever. In a small note at the bottom, her team mentioned that some non-parties had already had their motions denied and suggested that the court simply ignore any further efforts from them. Imagine if Wayfair had responded the same way, with just a short note in a letter. Blake's legal team would have reacted strongly, possibly even portraying her as a victim again. But in this case, Blake's team filed a document asking the court to drop subpoenas against certain creators and social media accounts like Popcorn Planet and Swifty Forever. In a small note at the bottom, her team mentioned that some non-parties had already had their motions denied and suggested that the court simply ignore any further efforts from them. This strategy, asking the court to just dismiss all related motions without actually responding, raises concerns. Perez Hilton wasn't even included in her recent updates. While Blake's team claims all social media subpoenas are settled, questions remain. Did companies like TikTok and Google hand over user data? If a subpoena is too broad or unfair for one person, shouldn't it be the same for all? In the middle of all this, Blake turned attention toward accusing Wayfair of not sharing certain documents. Some of her demands involved information that may no longer exist. For example, she's upset about not getting messages from Jen Al, even though Jen lost access to her old phone and email. That phone was actually taken and searched during a previous lawsuit. Blake's team already has the contents of the phone, but they're still acting as if Jen is withholding information. On top of that, there are questionable PR strategies being revealed. One message between publicists mentions creating fake Reddit posts and starting online discussions to manage the narrative. These services cost tens of thousands per month and were described as untraceable. Blake supposedly doesn't have this message, and Wayfair didn't provide it either. But it clearly talks about social media manipulation during a crisis, involving both Blake and the studio. In the end, Blake Lively seems to be shifting blame, avoiding questions, and hiding key facts. This story isn't just about legal filings, it's about what's being kept out of the spotlight. Do you think this is something we actually need? Based on what she was seeing, one person said they had a backup plan ready just in case, especially since the other side was doing interviews all week. But they didn't think action was needed right away. They simply wanted to be cautious and stay prepared, just in case. On that same day, Blake claimed there were messages discussing an untraceable communication strategy. Interestingly, the other parties involved didn't include those particular messages in their complaint. This raises questions. Did they delete them? Did they never exist? Or were they simply left out? Blake's version of the complaint included several texts that Wayfair's side did not mention. One of the most notable was the untraceable message, which only appears in Blake's filing. Melissa, the person who allegedly sent it, admitted she did send a message but denied Blake's interpretation of it. She argued the meaning had been twisted. This is where things get murky. There's a concern about missing metadata, digital proof that confirms when and how a message was sent. Without it, there's a possibility that some messages were edited or partially altered. This doesn't mean the texts are fake, but they could have been changed. For instance, a single sentence might have been added. The message labeled untraceable wasn't about targeting Blake or hiding things from her. It was more about managing the film's image online without making it obvious that the team was doing it. It was meant to guide social media conversations in a subtle way, not to deceive Blake, but to influence the public quietly. Melissa has not provided that message to Blake, and it's unclear whether she no longer has it or if it was edited by someone else, possibly Stephanie. There's another document called a privilege log, which shows Blake trying to get around Wayfair's claims that certain communications are protected because they involve legal advice. Blake wants to know why Brian Friedman was hired. Was it because he had connections who could influence social media? That's her theory. There's an email from September that mentions Brian Friedman. It was sent between several people involved in the film, including Jen, Justin, and others. That's the only time his name appears in their emails. Around that time, they were also handling issues related to Jen's stolen phone. It looks like they were even considering suing Blake or Jones Works, the PR company. Blake also received bonuses tied to the film's box office performance. But during this period, there were many legal discussions about those bonuses. Blake was promoting her alcohol line, which may have gone against her contract and harmed the film's promotion. That could have triggered a morality clause, something common in celebrity contracts, saying if an actor's behavior damages the film's image, their bonus can be withheld. From emails, it's clear that the company kept lawyers in the loop. Every decision, even hiring people or handling promotional events, was discussed with legal advisors. This shows they were trying to follow the rules. But Blake seems to believe there's more going on beneath the surface, and that some key pieces are being hidden from her. What if the real reason Blake Lively didn't receive her full bonus had nothing to do with legal technicalities, but everything to do with behind-the-scenes choices she and her team made during the film's promotion? Around the same time they were discussing suing her, they were also preparing for possible lawsuits from her. That alone shows there were many motives at play. Ryan Reynolds had his own reasons. He reportedly wanted someone else to take the fall for the film's failed marketing strategy. The promotions, especially ones involving Blake's alcohol brand, may have harmed the movie's reputation. Because of that, Blake might have lost out on performance-related bonus payments. At the heart of this whole issue is money. Blake's complaint shows frustration. She felt she was putting in all the effort while others were going to profit from it. Meanwhile, the studio had already been discussing suing her as early as August and September. So, is it possible that her lawsuit, framed around harassment and mistreatment, was really just a strategy to beat them to court and blame them first? Her actions on the promotional tour could have hurt the film financially. Maybe they realized this too late and tried to protect themselves legally. Blake repeatedly complains they aren't sharing evidence of a smear campaign against her, but legal records show that the company was actually trying to comply with her nudity agreement and other contract terms. Their consistent communication with lawyers suggests they were being cautious, not plotting against her. Now Blake is demanding documents that might not even exist. And the infamous untraceable message supposedly sent by Melissa? There are doubts about its authenticity. It's unclear whether it was altered, misunderstood, or fabricated altogether. Nothing has been confirmed, and yet so many questions remain unanswered. That's often how things go with Blake Lively, lots of mystery, little clarity. She's trying to shift the focus by accusing Wayfair of hiding things and refusing to cooperate. But the root of the issue might simply be that she didn't receive a bonus she expected, and that frustration snowballed into a much larger dispute. What's even more surprising is the truth behind the so-called 17-point agreement. It wasn't a safety policy or protection contract. It was actually an updated nudity rider, a legal document actors sign outlining what kind of body exposure they're comfortable with on screen. Blake renegotiated it to include her boundaries during scenes involving intimacy, domestic violence, and physical vulnerability. That's all it was. But somewhere along the line, it was turned into a claim of harassment. That twist may be the biggest lie in this entire situation. What was meant to give her creative control over her scenes is now being used to build a legal case around mistreatment. If that nudity writer was never about abuse, but simply part of her acting terms, then this entire lawsuit starts to look like a carefully planned manipulation. Blake wanted to control the narrative. But instead of a victory, she might be facing the collapse of everything she built. The judge isn't buying it, the facts are shaky, and the public is beginning to notice. If this was all built on a misleading claim, her reputation may be the real cost. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, follow for more updates, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps us going.